Hello and welcome to Commodity Champions. I'm Manisha Gupta. Well, after steel, aluminum, cars, drugs and semiconductors, the US President Donald Trump is readying tariffs on agricultural products in a fresh salvo. Trump wrote on social media, and I quote, "To the great farmers of the United States, get ready to start making a lot of agricultural products to be sold inside of the United States. Tariffs will go on external products on April 2nd, end of quote. Well, Trump's announcement, however, lacked clarity on the details of the agri products that will be affected. The proposed tariffs are expected to raise the cost of imported agricultural goods, benefiting the US farmers. Meanwhile, China is retaliating to Trump's orders to double the tariffs on Chinese goods to 20% from earlier 10%. China will impose tariffs as high as 15% on American agricultural goods, including chicken, corn and cotton. Soybeans from the US will face a 10% tariff. Over the years, China has also reduced its dependency on agri-goods from the country. The share of soybean imports from US fell to 21% in 2024 from 40% in 2016. Its imports of American corn also fell to less than $600 million. Last year was $2.6 billion. However, cotton imports surged marginally in the year. Now, where does India stand when it comes to this agri-tariff war triggered by Trump? Sources tell us that the country is resisting as of now the pressure to reduce its tariffs on many of the products, as it would impact millions of farmers within the country. Well, that really brings us to the conversation on what really will be the impact on all of these assignments. And joining us for that is Himanshu Agarwal, Managing Director, Satyam Balajee Group. Thank you so much, Himanshu, for joining in. And when you look at the overall numbers, we do understand that India is at number 10. When you look at the goods trades with the US within the countries, the contribution, of course, is just about 2.4% within that number, while you have 15% coming in from Mexico and Canada, 11% perhaps from China. But within this number as well, Himanshu, rice clearly is a very big number when you look at exports, whether it's basmati rice or non-basmati for that matter. So with all of this happening, with the currency moves as well, what has been your immediate sense on how the trade really seems to be getting impacted? And if there are tariffs, then how as a sector in sense of rice are you looking at it?
So Manisha ji, in terms of rice, US is already sort of self-sufficient. They do about 11.5 million tons of rice production, wherein their import is about 1.5 million tons, out of which what India does is close to about 250,000 tons. So mainly the rice exports to US happening from India is to the Indian diaspora living over there, the non-basmati and mainly the basmati trade. So the basmati trade would be affected to a certain extent if there's a tariff to be coming in place, because that accounts to about 8 to 9% of total basmati exports from India. But then again, not many options to go for in terms of basmati import from US. I mean, US either has to buy from China or from India. So the Indian diaspora will continue to flourish out there, and thus will the import from India should not be affected as much. But yes, the other soft commodities, as you've spoken, would take a bigger hit. Countries like Mexico and all, I mean, there it is to be seen that how exactly they take these tariffs, because of course there would be retaliatory tariffs from their side as well. So I don't know what US wants to achieve by this. I mean, I'm sure there's a huge trade deficit between India and US in terms of total commodities, if you see technology, oil and gas and everything. But yeah, in terms of export of rice, if we talk about, I don't see a lot happening, even if there is a tariff imposition happening, because non-basmati is just about 50,000 tons, which is to Indian diaspora. They would continue to buy even if there is a tariff.
Himanshu, also, as you spoke about, I mean, it is getting really broadened when you look at all of these tariffs and agriculture. Now, the next layer that the US president is talking about. But even before, as he spoke about agriculture, and that perhaps would happen on 2nd of April, what China has pushed out is as early as the second week of March. Are we looking at a bigger and a longer tariff trade war, as it were?
I most certainly would feel so. I mean, if they are not to come on a common table, there would definitely be a trade war happening. And India being in the center of agri supplies across the world. I mean, today India is literally feeding the world in terms of, whether it is sugar, whether it is rice, whether it is wheat, whether it is maize. So yes, India happens to be in the epicenter. I'm sure the Indian government would have a dialogue with these countries and will try to sense logic over here. But yes, it certainly is a time wherein India would have a more commanding position, because we are on the better state of supply chain. We are very well sufficient in terms of Agri, at least we are talking about. So there could be a trade war, but I happen to believe that we are very aptly placed, and Indian government can take their calls accordingly how they want to go about it. Because India government was never too happy with Indian rice going to China. So I'm sure now with these trade wars, they might find a way of restricting that, and make sure that we are not doing rice as well as a water export, which Indian government is so keen on restricting.
Hmm. Himanshu, the other thing really is about, on how China found other markets when it comes to soybean and corn, perhaps. They started importing more from Brazil. We've seen that happen in numbers on where US and China trade was in 2015 or 2016, even until 2020 and 21. But the last few years, or the last 2 to 3 years, have seen on how Brazil is becoming a major force within the markets as well. So when it comes to India, are we looking at the numbers? Are we looking at the geographies changing here? Because comics for the longest time, or CME for the CBOT for the longest time, has been a price reference, and the rest of the world really looks at premiums or discounts from that. Do you see that changing with what's happening?
I certainly would feel so that Indian products are going to be the benchmark products down the line, because the acceptability is increasing, the reliability is increasing, and more to do so, the quality wise and whole infrastructure that India has developed around export, it has become much more reliable. So I certainly feel that our products is going to be benchmarking different criterias and different agricultural products. So I would feel that finding an alternative to India is going to be difficult, because then again, it's not so easy to change the food habits of certain countries that we are seeing now. Like in rice, if I would say that Thai rice export used to enjoy a good 15 to 20% premium on Indian rice in African markets, which is not the case anymore. There are certain times where India is selling at a premium over Thai, which was historically considered to be a much premium product. So I mean, with stability in exports and continuous supply to certain markets, I really feel that we can establish that sort of an authority internationally.
Hmm. And Himanshu, we do understand that India is talking to US right now. We do understand that our trade minister, commerce minister is in US right now having various conversations with the kind of trade deficit that we have with US. Various sectors that I have been speaking to seem to be preparing themselves. I've been speaking to a lot of international guys as well, and they tell us that China was preparing because they have imported and stocked a lot of corn and soybean from US already ahead of these tariffs, and they've been buying from Brazil also. Is India, as of now, watching, waiting on sidelines, or do you think we have various sectors really activated into ensuring that there are enough stocks and then that we are prepared for anything that comes in?
So exactly the thing is that India has never been dependent on US in terms of agri imports, because agriculture, as we have been self-sufficient and we have been net exporter, unlike China. So there's not much of a preparation that was needed to be done at India's level. We were self-sufficient for the longest of period, and I don't think there is any buzz or any panic in the sense that if the tariff would come, it would hurt any of the business drastically. There may be some adjustment period, but I think India is going to find its way, and I don't see any challenges in terms of accepting these tariffs, even if they were to come.
And you don't think that's going to happen, especially for things like soybean or corn or wheat? Or do you think those are the sectors that perhaps need to be more bothered about than rice?
I think the only thing India is bothered right now is how to liquidate FCI stocks, because that's the only challenge we are sitting on right now. So yeah, I mean, Indian stocks, I mean, whether it's maize, whether it's wheat, whether it's rice, I think we are very suitably placed, and all these tariffs have very little or negligible impact on Indian trade.
All right, that's good to know. And that you perhaps are another assuring voice that has been saying that. Himanshu, thank you so much for joining in and making sense of what really agriculture tariffs mean for the world, and how India perhaps is better aligned and has better stocks. And of course, there's more credibility and acceptability when it comes to Indian goods as well. So we perhaps may not be so hit when it comes to agriculture as a sector. Well, on that note, it's time for a short break, but don't go anywhere. We will bring you a CNBC TV18 exclusive from MERS vehicle naming ceremony in Mumbai.